made by netting off subsequent interim payment certificates in the payment accounting system, which is used by National Road Fund Agency called SUN system, and communication to the affected contractors regarding these recoveries was made. The committee may wish to note that showing the recoveries on the actual IPCs as recommended by the auditors presents the following challenges. 1. Delayed processing of IPCs. The process of issuing IPCs might have been delayed due to administrative bottlenecks and contractual terms and conditions. 2. Contractor resistance or non-compliance. Some contractors might challenge the deductions or recoveries, leading to disputes that may further delay the issuance of corrected IPCs. To prevent future occurrences, management has engaged the system provider, AdvanceNet, to enhance the financial management system to minimize reliance on manual processes, which were identified as a primary cause of double payments. The system enhancements include automated duplicate payment detection with alerts to reject payments if the same IPC number for a specific project has already been processed. Further, management conducts quarterly payment reconciliations with implementing agencies and remains committed to strengthening financial controls and enhancing transparency to safeguard public resources. The next item, Chair, Honorable Members, relates to the issue raised by the Auditor General with regard to question of terms of conditions of contract payment of gratuity resulting in financial loss. The observation of the auditor was that Section 53(6) of the Employment Code under number 3 of 2019 states that where an employee terminates a long-term contract of employment under this section, the employer shall pay the employee gratuity, which is prorated according to the period of employment. The Auditor General's report showed that the agency paid amounts totaling 17,876,976 to 4 employees of the National Road Fund Agency whose contracts were terminated. The amounts were calculated at 35% based on full contract period instead of the prorated amount of 11,345,761 for the period served by the employees, which the auditors said resulted in an excess payment of 6,531,215. Chair, the auditor's observation is noted. We wish the committee to note that management sought to uphold contractual terms of the 4 employees to avoid potential legal proceedings. Notably, the contracts for the directors in question were terminated in 2024, and no contracts were terminated during the audit period from January 2021 to December 2023. The former directors were paid full gratuity upon termination of their contracts of service in accordance with the 2018 approved conditions of service by the Board of Directors and signed employment contracts of service, specifically clause 6.4 of the conditions of service, which states if the agency terminates the contract of an employee before the expiry of the contract, the agency shall pay the employee full gratuity, including monthly salaries and allowances, as if the contract had been duly served. Furthermore, Section 127 of the Employment Code Act number 3 of 2019 provides that where a contract of employment, collective agreement, or other written law provides conditions more favorable to the employee, the contract, collective agreement, or other written law shall prevail to the extent of the favorable conditions. Additionally, in July 2024, before payment of the severance packages to the said 4 employees, management, as guided by the Board of Directors, sought a legal opinion from the Ministry of Justice, that is the Attorney General's Office, regarding the payment of terminal benefits to the separated directors. The Attorney General's office provided a legal opinion guiding in favor of the paying of the former employees as per signed employment contracts of service. Attached are the appendices. We have Appendix 3, extract from the 2018 approved minutes by the board on the revised conditions of service, B, extract of 2018 amendment to the conditions of service, payment of gratuity, and C, a legal opinion from the Attorney General's office on the payment for terminal benefits to the separated directors. The next item, Chair, honorable members, relates to failure to pay withholding and value-added tax due. On this issue, the Auditor General's report noted that Circular Number 7 of 2023 instructed ministries, government departments, and statutory bodies to act as third-party collection agencies for the Zambia Revenue Authority, ZRA, in line with the provisions under Section 23 of the VAT Act Cap 331, Section 171A of the Customs and Excise Act Cap 332, and Section 84 of the Income Tax Cap 232, to withhold and remit these taxes to ZRA, which are deducted from payments from suppliers of works, goods, and services. The auditor noted that during the period under review, it was observed that Nrfa did not remit the withholding tax in amounts totaling 42,059,166 and VAT in amounts totaling 153,182,11. The response is as follows. The auditor's observation is noted, and we wish to submit the following response. The committee may wish to note that management acknowledges the requirement to submit VAT and withholding tax collected on behalf of the government in a timely manner. The outstanding amounts owed to the Zambia Revenue Authority were part of the agency's legacy debt, which currently stands at over 7 billion. In the 2025 road sector budget, and 375 million has been allocated to partially settle the debt arrears, including this obligation. In this regard, management has since been engaging ZRA and the Treasury on the best approach to dismantle this debt. To ensure compliance and prevent further accumulation of tax liabilities, management implemented a new practice starting from the third quarter of 2024, where withholding tax and VAT are remitted immediately upon making payments to contractors. This proactive approach ensures timely remittance to ZRA and enhances compliance with tax regulations. We have attached Appendix 4, which shows payment extracts of the recent withholding and value-added tax to ZRA starting from third quarter of 2024. Chair and members, I submit.
Yes, thank you very much for your submission. Did you want to add any other submission?
I thought, Chair, I wanted to ask your permission for the board chair to also give some comments. Thank you.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Honorable Members. And thank you, Team Leader. Honorable Chair, I just wanted to speak to two things. Firstly, is to acknowledge the observations by the Office of the Auditor General, but we as a board have taken action on most of these things, but in particular, the issue of payment of board and committee sitting allowances to management. When this matter was brought to our attention, we decided to curtail payment of those allowances to management staff. Then over the issue Honorable Chair, to do with duplication of payments. We take that very seriously because of its potential to more or less cost government to lose money. And to that effect, we as a board have directed management to have a full and comprehensive review of the ICT infrastructure to ensure that if we come to the conclusion that the system is failing us, we will have to take appropriate action, which may include probably contracting another service provider. Then lastly, Chair, it's on the issue to do again on payments regarding all statutory obligations. I think the board has also taken a serious view, and management has been directed to ensure that going forward, all statutory obligations, whether it's ZRA, whether it's NAPSA, are paid timely and without any undue delay. So, Chair, I'll pause here for now. I thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Board Chair, for mitigating the audit report, findings. When did you take over Nrfa again?
Chair, I was appointed to the board April last year, Chair.
It's April 2024. We're looking at we're looking at audit report ending December 2023. Yeah, and unfortunately, or fortunately, Pianango Apiana Namavala is a Bemba adage. That means that
I agree, Chair.
Once you take up a responsibility, you take up the responsibility of the assets and liabilities of the institution. So we will draw you back to the audit report, or to take note of the corrective actions that you've taken. Members are now free to interrogate the submission from PS Minister of Finance and the board chair from Nrfa. Honorable members. Honorable Anakoka.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, PS and board chair, for your presentation. Chair, I would just like to seek some clarity on the issue of budget and funding. PS, you have given a list of some special funding to explain how you ended up with an excess income of about 8 billion, isn't it? Yes, slightly over 8 billion. And among those sources of funding, you have also talked about external funding from cooperating partners. So maybe what one would want to find out is, specifically relating to external funding, how these externally funded projects incorporated in the road sector annual work plan. Are they just coming without you anticipating that there is going to be this kind of support, and therefore would be done completely outside the work plan? If you are able to explain or clarify that, we would be grateful. And maybe, Chair, another leg still relating to funding is that when you look at this special funding that you've categorized, it means there was quite a bit of a mismatch between what was expected and what you actually received over the 3 years under review, which suggests that there's a pattern of the institution going for supplementary funding every year. why do we seem to be getting caught up in this cycle every year? Maybe I should pause there, Chair. I'll make a follow-up after they have submitted to these two questions.
Well, thank you, Honorable Nakoka. PS? You're at liberty to take a bite, and what you would like to delegate to any of your team members, please be at liberty.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Nakoka, for that very key observation. Indeed, the government receives some external support from some of the ongoing projects in various sectors, including the road sector. And I'm aware that usually with cooperating partners, we have maybe 5-year or 3-year cooperation agreements, which indicate a total stream of support that will be provided towards the road sector plan. And also that would go to specific projects within the road sector plan. I would ask the board, I would ask the CEO to provide some clarity in terms of how these funds are being captured in the annual plan and budget, so that Honorable Nakoka's question can be answered, and also to indicate how the flow of these funds practically happens from the cooperating partners, because I'm aware that they go directly to the project. Thank you.
CEO, kindly proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Pardon me for wearing a mask. I'm a bit under the weather.
You are well protected, as I take interest too, being from that institution that causes wearing of masks.
Chair, sorry. Chair, in terms of budgeting for the external funded projects, these are always budgeted for in the road sector annual work plan. Chair, we sit and program these activities with the implementing agencies on an annual basis, such that all external funding, they are directed to already identified projects, each year according to the funding cycle from each cooperating partner. So, Chair, in this regard, we submit that these are well budgeted for. Concerning the extra funding coming from the Treasury to the road sector, Chair, just an addition, the disbursement to the road sector on the external funding is always planned within the annual work plan, and it's also sequenced and predicted accordingly as per the programs provided. Chair, in terms of the extra funding from the Treasury, as highlighted by my PS Chair, the extra funding which comes from the Treasury, one of the components is from the road user charges, and what the auditor alluded to over the past 3 years is that the institution actually over-collected. If you look at the road user charges, you will find that 2.6 billion was collected over and above budget, and these funds, Chair, are dedicated for road maintenance and road construction activities. Hence, the Treasury was obliged to release these funds back to the road sector. Other funds which are significant in terms of the over budget in resources, Chair, within the analysis you will see a funding for liquidating the Nrfa loan. This loan, Chair, was obtained from Nrfa to facilitate construction of one of the key roads between Solwezi and Chingola. And the government was gracious enough to liquidate this loan before its final due date. So they facilitated the liquidation of this loan before its ultimate expiry date. Hence, the road sector received and accounted for that fund as part of the funding to the road sector. I submit, Chair. Chair, there was an issue concerning supplementary funding to the road sector, and in particular the 400 million which we received. Chair, this was well budgeted for, and it was also speaking to the various needs which arose during that year in terms of road infrastructure development. Hence, the government approved, through your House Chair, an additional supplementary funding just to meet the obligations of the road sector. May I also add, Chair, that despite all this external funding, the road sector still sits on a huge debt. This additional funding did not ameliorate the challenges which the road sector is still facing. We still need more money. It's only that there are a lot of competing needs, Chair. I submit.
Thank you, CEO. Any follow-up questions on that subject? Honorable Nakok?
Yes, Chair. I hear the CEO emphasizing that this is well budgeted for, but then that becomes a little bit problematic because the query is in fact talking about funding that you received which you did not budget for in the period under review. In other words, it was not anticipated on your part. So this creates an impression of, or raises a question of how sound is the basis of our budgeting when it comes to income, or how much coordination is there between yourselves and the key players as far as funding is concerned when you are preparing your budget. Because if the budget is not well coordinated, it means the plan that follows from there also will not be reliable. And that probably speaks to the issue that you've just alluded to, of being highly indebted, this notwithstanding. So maybe you can clarify a little bit in terms of the coordination. How do you get to say for the year coming, this is how much we are expecting, and therefore it speaks to your work plan? How does that process unfold? Thank you.
Let's have, before you respond to that, let's have Honorable Kampiongo add to that question.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe I write in a different dimension here. If the CEO is saying they make sure that they budget for these annual work plans well enough, why is it that, because if you ask most of honorable members seated here who have been a witness to projects, especially those that are under improved rural connectivity plan, projects awarded, money spent a little bit, and the works commence to a certain level, and then works are terminated on account of lack of funding. There are so many of those projects right now as we speak that are incomplete, and yet money has already been spent on and some
Projects that are incomplete.
yes, yes, that's what I meant. But already funds were committed. I mean, because for some of the works to be done, funds were committed to the project, and then eventually a project is terminated on account of lack of funding. So we would like you to, to harmonize that position. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thanks so much. Honorable Mapani.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, having listened to the submission made by the CEO, I have a question to ask, and the question, Chair, is he talked about, yes, receiving the money from externals, and that there's that which received and which was budgeted, still went on to say they don't have enough money. Now, Chair, I want to find out on principle how much the organization would have loved to have for them to perform their obligation. Further, Chair, looking at what they've budgeted and what they've received, to me, I think money was still there. Now, I want to find out how much on principle do they still need for them to perform their obligations, despite that they have budgeted no little and they received more, but still they have a deficit according to what they have submitted. So I want to find out how much do they still need to have for them to perform their obligations. Chair, submit.
Well, could you respond to those questions, PS and your team?
Maybe the board chair can start, and then the CEO will proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I'll just probably put things into a little bit of context. First of all, in as far as external funding is concerned, as you will rightly observe, these are what you call external cooperating partners that support specific projects, whether it's under local government or whether it's under the Road Development Agency. Now, Honorable Chair, you will realize that our experience over time is that negotiations can commence this year, and there can be indications that disbursements will probably follow the same financial year that you commence negotiations. And it so happens that it only crystallizes in terms of the actual disbursements maybe a year or two later, knowing very well how our friends who support us also have got their own processes which they have to follow. So, Chair, there are no guarantees that you can agree, sign all the requisite memorandums and the funds hit your account the same financial year. So these are some of the observations under the Auditor General's account, where you're seeing that funds which could not have been probably factored into the financial year for the current year, for the financial year being received, which were projected or budgeted for the previous financial year. Now, in as far as the question that Honorable Mpane has raised, the actual budget or work plan rather, which we agree with our principal, the Ministry of Finance, it is not always that we get funding to the fullest extent of the budget. There is always a deficit in funding. Like what Honorable Kampion has said, projects can be consummated, quite all right, and probably advance payments made, but along the way they're terminated because of lack of funding. There is actually a very worrying concern from us as the National Road Fund Agency that there's an element of over-contracting on some of these roads, which does not match the resource envelope. Now, under the circumstances, the government has taken a policy decision to terminate what is considered as contracts which have been over-contracted. But at the end of the day, when my CEO is talking about legacy debt, I think we're sitting at 14 billion. Legacy debt, these are the effects or the implications of what we are now having to deal with. So, Honorable Chair, yes, the intentions are good. We need roads. But the resource envelope is not sufficient to be able to address that. I submit, Chair. Maybe my CEO can.
Right, CEO, you wanted to add before? You okay? Right, on the same? Yes. Right, Honorable Smiley.
Chair, I appreciate all the submissions and maybe the explanations given both by the CEO and the chair. I also understand too well the annual work plans and how they work. They are simply procurement plans where funds are allocated for various projects, and the various approvals given, whether it's a bridge, a road, and everything that the agency does. In regard to the issue of unfinished or abandoned projects, I'm much referring to the improved road connectivity projects or plans. Whereas the funds are there, they are approved according to the plan, and then according to the submission by the CEO, is that the external funding is actually sequenced to these annual plans, so that when the project starts, those funds also are incorporated into that workload. Is there a situation, my question now, is there a situation where you face, like, let's say, these abandoned projects, maybe funds are taken elsewhere, where initially the plan wasn't there? For example, maybe in the case of emergencies, like maybe a washaway bridge, which is very much critical to passage of the public. I submit, Chair.
Thanks so much. Any response to that?
Thank you, Honorable Member, for the question. Just as some sort of context setting, I'm aware that, for instance, the project under question, and I think the rules for the World Bank and the EU are sort of similar. In terms of the approved work plan for the year, usually in terms of if money is coming that particular year, in terms of implementation, there's a requirement or obligation by the implementing agencies to implement the projects that have been prior approved within that framework. And should there be any emergencies or anything that happens, I think within the contracts or agreements that the government has with these cooperating partners, I think there are procedures that should be followed should we request for any either additional resources to be provided or resources to be provided towards an emergency. There's what is called obtaining of no objection. But I would like the CEO to speak specifically to the issue that has been raised.
Thank you, PS. Thank you, Chair. In terms of whether there are funds which are reallocated to other projects just diverted within the annual work plan, Chair, I would want to state that once the annual work plan is agreed, the implementing agencies endeavor to undertake the annual work plan as per agreement. There are no funds which are diverted to some other project outside the annual work plan. The only challenge which is observed normally is that between the external funding and the local resource component funding, in most cases, we do not receive full funding on the local resource component as per annual work program. This is what in most cases leads to delayed and also maybe probably scoping of projects, since the availability of funds from the internal resources generated internally is not always available. I submit.
Thank you very much. Honorable Kakubo, you'd like to add to that?
Chair, on a related issue to do with your receivables and how you are spending the grant money and money coming from government, one would think that because you are in a short position, you don't have enough resources. Therefore, your management to be very cautious, extra cautious on how you spend money. But on one leg, we have a situation where the institution is short of funds. On the other leg, you are double paying. There's the issue of double paying 11 million kwacha. Now that's a colossal amount, Chair. It's a huge amount. What kind of an error is that? And what action have you taken to the erring officers in the institution? Whether it's manual entries, but 11 million, especially that you are in a short position, you'll be extra cautious. And related to the same matter, Chair, the contractors that were paid double, in your indication PS, you are saying that they are likely to contest the double payment. On what basis? Because you, as an institution, you have your records, you have paid double the amount. Why would the people that have received more than that, what they should have received at that point, be contesting? I think you need to speak to that so that the committee can understand. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
So, CEO, PS.
Thank you, Chair. I would like the CEO to respond to the issue of fund management in view of first the root cause of the double payment and the value chain or ecosystem involved in the Nrfa processing the payments, so that we sort of put things in perspective in relation to what we are describing as some of the challenges that may be there if we are deducting at source. I'm aware that there are a number of other players that are involved before the issue of payment comes to the National Road Fund Agency to honor the payment. CEO.
CEO, proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the issue of double payment, Chair, I wish to state that it was a very regrettable issue on our part. And as rightly pointed out by the Honorable Member of Parliament, we need to be cautious. The issue mainly arose at the time when we had a bit of system challenges, I think some 2 years ago. And what happened was certain payments were processed outside the system when the system was down. As a result, by the time when the system came back, the same payments were paid again. But management took an active action, and this was identified internally before Auditor General came on the ground. We proceeded and recovered these double payments on subsequent IPCs. The concerned officers were cautioned, and the management has taken an active step in ensuring that we no longer process any payments manually, because processing manually in essence exposes the agency to running two parallel systems, such that we avoid the situation of us having paid twice. Currently, we have mitigated this issue and all payments are automated.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Just to add, and maybe to assuage the concern by Honorable Kakuwa. Honorable Chair, the issue around being short in terms of us fulfilling our payment obligations is something that is very serious. Last week, I engaged the Honorable Minister of Finance and the RDA Board Chairperson that we may have to make a policy decision where we only contract subject to availability of funds. And this is an active conversation going on where we are saying that in the absence of funds being available, sitting in the account, we may have to make a cautious decision to freeze new road contracts, because that is creating unnecessary strain on the limited resource envelope that we have to contend with. I submit, Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, you want to make a follow-up on the double payment?
Yes, Chair. The second part of the question I asked, on what basis will the contractors contest the double payment? What have they said to you? Why would they contest it when it's clear that there's a double payment?
Yes, proceed with that question. There's another follow-up question from Honorable Mapani, maybe. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think on the same question, I just want to find out as why and how do they want the auditor to settle this issue when they have failed to give them the IPCs? Because I want to believe the IPCs are very important for them to verify, to indicate that indeed the money was recovered. And then if they don't do that, how do they expect the auditors to do that? And then the other question, Chair, we want to find out the kind of punishment these officers who performed this ill act were given. Chair, submit.
Thank you very much. Could you respond to both?
Chair, the issue of contractors probably being resistant to this recovery was put in the in the response, in the context that it may delay the process because you need to have some reconciliations to be done. So when the query was raised, the auditors were asking where on the actual IPC, because the certification process involves the two agencies in most cases. The certification process starts from the RDA, then it comes to Nrfa to pay. Now, what was missing in that process in terms of the recoveries was that the recovery was not being reflected on the interim payment certificate. Since the double payment occurred on the Nrfa side, the certificates which were coming to Nrfa were correct, but the double payment occurred on our system, on our side. In terms of recovery, we initiated that process based just on netting off the subsequent IPCs without necessarily taking back the IPCs to the implementing agency, so that they are redone in such a way that the double payment is reflected there. So this process of the contractors resisting, it relates to the issue of reconciliations between the agency and ourselves. In terms of the actual punishment which was undertaken against the employees who were affected in this chain, they were initially written to show cause why disciplinary action could not be taken, but along the way it was found that actually the double payment was not an intentional matter, but it was due to the system being down at that time, and also the requirement that we needed to pay these contractors as soon as the money was available. So due to the pressure, we couldn't really penalize these employees per se, but what was opted for was that we were able to recover these amounts from the subsequent IPCs which were being submitted by the contractors. I submit, Chair.
Yes, Honorable Mapani.
Chair, under management response on Roman numeral 2, the contractor resistance or non-compliance. Some contractors might challenge deductions or recoveries. Just that statement, Chair, is enough to say or to show that a deduction was not done. Now, if the deduction was done, why do we have to sort this thing? Why did they sort this thing in the submission? And then, Chair, if we say there was no negligence, then the question will be, at what point did we apply the word negligence? Negligence was here, Chair. So I want to believe the CEO, yes, is making a submission, but there are a lot of elements which are not here. And Chair, just to say, those who performed that ill act were just left scot-free. Then the question would be, at what point did we apply discipline charges? Because, Chair, this is a pure indication that there was an intention to deprive an organization. And this intention, Chair, the way it's coming out being defended now, I don't think that's the correct position. The correct position is let the money be paid, let the auditors be given the IPCs so that they can finally confirm that indeed this money was recovered. And if the money was recovered, then why do we continue again talking about the resistance from the clients? Chair, that does not that shouldn't be the case. So I want to believe National Road Agency should still come up with other answers, not the ones that we are receiving now, Chair, because their intention to deprive is purely there. The act was ill, and the auditors were asking for the IPCs are not given the information. Then the question will be, how do we proceed? Because we need to make sure that these recoveries are made and there should be proof. There's no system that can hinder any organization from producing the evidence. Chair, never. So I think the CEO should give us best answers, not the answers that he's submitting now. Chair, submit.
Thank you very much. PS and your team.
Chair, I would like to maybe call the board to speak to this matter so that we satisfy the committees. I think they're seeking clarity on how this matter will be properly resolved.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I totally agree with Honorable Mapani. I think coming from the banking sector, that is not acceptable. The response is not acceptable. Because if there was a duplication of payment, recourse cannot be at any point challenged or contested. It was a duplicated payment. On my part, Honorable Chair, may I be given the benefit that the board committee responsible for overseeing this function will cooperate with the Office of the Auditor General to ensure closure to the satisfaction of this committee. And to that effect, if at all the committee or the board believes that indeed no sufficient disciplinary action was taken, I do not see why that can't be done. I submit, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other follow-up questions on this? Right. Any other questions from honorable members? Yes, Honorable Mundwile.
Thank you, Chair. My question relates to irregular payments of sitting allowances to senior management for attending board and board committee meetings. The board chair spoke to this and in part, answered some of the questions that I had. Yeah, but board chair, when you look at the submission, the facting issue relates to the applicability of Circular number 11 of 2013. That is to say, whether or not Nrfa is a statutory body. And that forms, my first question. In your view, is Nrfa a statutory body or not? That's my question number one. And obviously, I think in your response, you mentioned that payments have been halted as you wait to get clarification from a cabinet office. The concern of the committee was that even as you were seeking clarification, payments of these allowances had continued, and that for the past 10 years, it had continued to be so. But in your other response, you actually clarified and said that you had put a halt to that. Yeah, so probably you can attend to the first part of the question. I thank you.
With your permission, Honorable Chair, may I respond?
Chair.
Thank you so much, Honorable Munduluvi. I can probably state from the onset that I thought the board could have made this decision in a vacuum. Why do I say so? Cabinet circular is 2013, I believe 2013. Then the board resolution is 2019. Now, Chair, there's information which the board sometimes may not be given sight of, and what I would like to believe is a suspicion is that at the time that management motivated this request to the board probably was not brought or made aware of Cabinet Circular 2011. Now, if you read Cabinet Circular 2011, it's very instructive. And I do not think, I may not be a lawyer, but I do not think that Nrfa can escape from being a statutory body. Because firstly, it's funded by the taxpayer. So as such, it cannot escape that directive from Cabinet Office. That is my honest thinking. And when this matter was brought to the board's attention, we immediately moved to stop the payments. And stopping the payments for the simple reason that we think that the Cabinet Circular was breached. So, if you may allow me, Honorable Chair, the board will be addressing this issue at its next board meeting, and the final outcome will be communicated to the Office of the Auditor General, of course through our parent ministry. But again, to answer your questions, yes, I think and I 100% believe that Nrfa is a statutory body, and two, that probably if the board was made aware of the circular from Cabinet, maybe this decision could not have been entertained. I submit, Chair.
Thank you very much, Board Chair. Follow-up question, Honorable Munduvile.
Yes, thank you, Chair, for your honest response. I think the concern that we have, on one hand, you submit that the board may not have been aware about the existence of this particular circular. But even at the time that the circular was made available to the board, we are now being told that there are further consultations with Cabinet Office. I think that's where the conflict comes in. Because if indeed, at the time of the decision, the board was not aware, but at the point that they became aware of the circular, there should have been no need for further consultation. Could you please clarify on that position?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Again, like what I said, the issue of consultation with Cabinet was arrived at through the respective board committee. Now, Honorable Chair and Honorable Munduvile, you may agree with me that this issue, having been passed through a full competent board, to reverse it required that all the doubts that lingered on whether, like what has rightly been presented, Nrfa still was a statutory body or not, and whether the conditions of service which the board had conferred on the staff could be reversed without the necessary what you call clearances from Cabinet. And I think you also wrote to the Attorney General. That is where I think that issue comes in. But I think, Chair, what is important is to probably agree that some of these things that we decide in the boards may, I think, be a product of probably some element of not really understanding and appreciating our respective mandates and where they stop. Because first of all, If you are an establishment of the government and the government gives a directive, I think your span in terms of what you can do, which is in conflict with government, is very limited. So I bear to, or rather I request that you give this board the benefit of doubt that any corrective measure that will be required to be done, it will be done. To me, I think it was a serious oversight on the part of the board. I honestly believe so. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Follow-up question on the same?
Thank you, Chair. And it's indeed gratifying that the board chair, on behalf of his board, is making these board commitments. But, Chair, I would just like to take it a little bit below the board, because I would want to believe this matter originated from management. They brought it to the board and motivated it. I've been struggling to understand what really was the thinking here. How did this matter even arise? Because payment of allowances to members of staff would ordinarily have circumstances under which it would arise. Either you are carrying out an activity and so you need to be funded in order to carry out that activity, which is outside your normal scope. Now, you go for work, you call for a meeting in your office, and for the 2 hours that you are sitting in your office, management actually conjured up this idea and said, no, but we need to be getting paid allowances. This PS speaks to the lack of conscionable thinking that was going on in management at that time. So I think much as the board might have been misled or ill-advised, but just the mere fact that this issue arose is itself surprising. And it's the attitude here, Chair, is also exemplified in what appeared to, by the institution, again I'm sure it's management, trying to distance themselves from the umbrella of being a statutory body. It's not the first time we are coming across this, maybe 1 or 2 other institutions, and in those institutions there are similar traits of this kind of behavior. So it's good to know that, Chair, that you are stamping your authority on this, but it's disappointing, at least from the committee's perspective, that people that are entrusted with huge resources of the public are first of all thinking about themselves, getting extra payment for jobs they are already being paid salaries to do. It's not encouraging. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Management, would you like to hazard a response?
Chair, it's a difficult situation to respond to. I acknowledge the the submissions and the guidance given by the Honorable Member of Parliament.
So CEO says it's too hazardous to respond to. Yeah, so we'll make progress. Any further questions? Is all the same? Honorable Kampiongo, proceed. Yeah, you can proceed.
Chair, mine would be to draw the PS and the team to page 18 of the report, and in their submission, in their CAB memo, page 4, the issue is related to the advance payments which were made against expired advance payment guarantees and bonds. You have acknowledged in your response on page 4 that payments were made against expired guarantees, and that the delay in making these payments was due to non-availability of funds. But seriously, controlling officer, any accounting officer who is about to make payments of this nature will look at the attachments the documents that come with the payment requisitions, how was it eventually when funds were made available, without looking at the validity of these guarantees and bonds? How effective are the internal controls that could ignore the validity of those financial instruments that contractors put in for a purpose? And then you are also saying, of course, you are talking about recoveries, that you still have got 867,000 yet to be. What will happen if this you have put as appendices to show how recoveries were done? Now, this should have availed to the auditor. It's not for last year. And so as far as we are concerned, for an query to be elevated to the committee, it still stands. So I would like you to address that aspect as we are making responses to this pertinent query of paying. And the board chairperson, you are from the financial sector. You know how important these financial instruments are. I submit, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kampyongo. PS and your team, could you respond?
Chair, I would like maybe a comment from the Director for Internal Audit to respond to the effectiveness of the internal controls in view of, I think, due diligence required to see that before a payment is issued, all the documents are valid to warrant the payment. And then the other questions posed will be addressed by the CEO.
Director, Internal Audit. Not okay, you can proceed. See. Oh, yeah, okay.
Thank you so much, PS. Thank you so much, Chair. As regards the internal controls, I would say internal controls are sound in the institution. I think most of these issues that have been raised here by the Auditor General, they were raised by internal audit. So most of them, you realize that management was already working on these issues. And then we on these expired payment guarantees, some of these usually mostly as a result of in payments. So we have risk and the M&E who ensure that at the time when these is that some of these IPCs that were paid, maybe there are 2015 IPCs. So at the time when risk and reviewing the that at the point of paying, which I agree with the Member of Parliament who was saying that there is need to review the documentation to establish that at that point in time the attached documentation is actually valid. I submit. No, it's done by risk.
Yes, Honorable Kampyongo.
I wanted to just be sure because you are saying there's another unit which looks at the payments. There's pre-audit when we're doing payments and post-audit. At pre-audit, that's where you look at all the documents that are attached. And that's where you are supposed to actually flag off and say, look, before this payment is effected, we have noticed that the advance payment attached is expired. I want to understand, when you say some payments are done, the requests are made, just simple and clear.
Yes, proceed, Director.
Chair, my colleague to respond to the issue, because for us as internal audit, we do post audits.
You only do post audits?
Yes, we don't do audits.
You are firefighters, you know, the fires, because then you want to extinguish the fire.
Thank you very much, Chair. The process in terms of checking the payments, when we receive an IPC, M&E checks very part of an IPC. This is an advanced IPC, what we're talking about. And then it comes to risk management. We now also verify on the financial part of it and the risk of having the guarantees to be valid. So the payments that are in question were verified by risk at the time of receipt. For example, we receive today, we verify, we even write letters to the insurance companies, the guarantors, to say how valid is this guarantee. And the payment at that time is only processed when you receive the response from the insurance companies. But the payments that we're looking at, what happened was when we received, everything was perfect. Everything was checked, was okay. But at the time of payment, remember we have two processes. The first one is verifying the payment request, the invoice itself, the validity of the invoice. The second process is now when the actual payment is happening. And risk management is not involved when the actual payment is being made. I submit, Chair.
Chair, we just recognize the fact that I think it's evident that the process, the way the business process, the way it is described, inbuilt into how the verification happens up to the point of payment, I think we have seen that there is room for improvement that we should acknowledge. We have acknowledged that due diligence, even when done throughout the whole value chain, but at the last mile or point of execution, I think there's a gap which we need to address. And this gap relates to how I think the agency's risk management framework can be stretched to ensure that up to the point of payment, the risks are evaded and all the compliance requirements are adhered to. I take note, and I think the ministry and the board will need to sit down and ensure that this gap that is there gets addressed with the relevant committee that deals with this matter. I submit. Thank you.
Chairperson, the last submissions are troublesome, are troubling, worrisome. And we will talk about them as we proceed. Honorable Kampyongo, are you, I know you're as displeased as I am.
Yeah. Certainly, but we acknowledge the admission of the controlling officer on that part. You see, there are now so many issues that may arise, such as, because you're talking about advance payment, and obviously you do IPCs on a pro rata basis. Let's say if the contractor took off, with the advance payment without the subsequent IPCs coming through, how were the funds going to be recovered? There are possibilities. We have had those cases here. But then maybe just the last part, how sure are you that the remaining amount of 867,000 will be recovered as well? And if in the event that it becomes irrecoverable, what do you do? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thanks so much, CEO.
Chair, just to acknowledge that yes, the gaps in terms of the advance payment were identified, and management currently has also put in measures after this episode to ensure that no advance payment is made without verifying the validity of the guarantee. So we want to assure your committee that we have put in measures and realigned certain roles within the agency to ensure that no advance payment is made without verifying the validity of the guarantee. In terms of the 867, if it were to become irrecoverable, Chair, we have started engagements with the contractor who has been identified, who was paid, and we are discussions are underway in how to recover this amount. Apparently, he still has some other few projects, so we are still discussing on how how this amount will be recovered. I submit.
Thank you very much. Any further questions, committee? Honorable Mo Somali.
Thank you very much, Chair. My questions to the agency and the Chair are coming to the questionable terms of conditions of contracts in regard to the payment of gratuity to 4 employees. Looking at your submission, you found yourself what I can describe as a hard rock and a concrete wall, whereas you did everything in your ambit to comply with the law for conditions of service for the employees, to avoid the legal action, and you even went further to seek for legal opinion to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General also agreed with you that you can go ahead to pay the employees according to their conditions of service, which maybe the Attorney General termed it like the contracts themselves at the time of formulating them, they are a little bit generous. Yet you had now no option except honoring them. I hope you are following me. Now, there was a clause in the employment codes of 2019 which the Attorney General feels that you could have done. You could have done.
The Auditor General.
Oh yeah, the Auditor General. You could have done at the time of designing or developing these contracts. The question now is, why didn't you look at this code of employment code and would have come up with something at the design stage, which could have avoided this particular query? And at the time of coming up with these conditions of service, we would like to know, did you seek for any advice at the time when these conditions of service were being developed? Did you seek any advice, legal opinions and other things, or their interpretations and eventual possible effects, like the way it has been discovered now, maybe that these contracts were a little bit lucrative and you had no option but to pay them, to honor them? Lastly, I think, Chair, maybe I would like to know, the committee wants to know if there are such contracts running currently, and what do you intend to do in the future in the proceeding with such contracts which have similar clauses? I think those three questions are enough for the day. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Honorable Musumali. The PS and your team.
Through the PS, thank you, Honorable Chair. And I totally agree with you, Honorable Musumali. The contracts seemed to have been so generous in as far as separation was concerned or is concerned. And again, not that we're running away from responsibility, but we take full responsibility as a board for everything that has been done by the board, whether current or previous. My commitment to you, Honorable Chair, and your committee is that going forward, we shall ensure that what we do is a win-win situation for both parties to a contract, and we have full consultations with the relevant government organs to ensure that what we couch going forward as contracts speak to the aspirations of our principals, and in this case, the government. So, Chair, being what it was, our hands were tied. We couldn't do anything about it, but we just had to comply. Our assurance is that we will review this position in all future contracts going forward. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Any further questions on this subject? Yes, Honorable Musumali.
Thank you, Chair. I think the board chair has clarified. There was no option that they could do at the time, but his agreement that they will look at it in future and have a win-win situation, and also make sure that when they do these contracts, they will look at what is suitable for both parties. I think it's fine. We can move ahead, Chair.
Thanks so much. Honorable Mapani.
Chair, it's just an observation made. Chair, I want to believe that to all institutions, when Auditor General have an intention or indicated an intention or in case an intention to visit the organization, there is always a notice given. Now, Chair, I've seen a couple of documents that are not available to the auditors at the point of audit, like schedule of unrecovered amounts. Now, I just want to find out at what point do they sit only necessarily that they are appearing before us, that they have to attach rather than giving them straight to the Auditor Generals at the point of auditing. Because I want to believe the issue of attitude, Chair, is very important. Because some of the works that we're discussing today would have not been if the rules were followed. So I just want to find out why some of the documents are attached here rather than given to the auditors at the point of audit.
A quick response from you, CEO.
Okay, Chair, maybe I can come in.
Proceed.
Yes, because since the CEO, like what Honorable Mapani has said, should have availed this information to the Auditor General's office at the point or at the time they were auditing. Now, since that was done, I think it is now remains with the board to interrogate the matter and understand why this arose and any other necessary actions taken. So my assurance to you, Honorable Chair, Honorable Mapani, and the committee, is that I think if we establish that this was deliberate, then we shall take the necessary action. I thank you, Chair.
Yes, Honorable Kaku.
We thank the position of the board, but we have the CEO here. He must also give a response since he's the one that is managing issues. What happened when the auditors came and these documents were not given to them, but they've been availed straight to the committee? We thank the board chair on what the corrective action he will do going forward, but we are still working in retrospect what exactly occurred. Chair, I think it would be interesting to hear the answer.
CEO.
Yeah. Yes, Chair. Chair, there were interactions between ourselves and the Office of the Auditor General, and the interactions were continuous during the audit period. Chair, to the best of the knowledge of management, we submitted most of the schedules, but I think there was miscommunication between my officers and the Office of the Auditor General, such that at the end of the day, by the time the report was being finalized, certain schedules were not yet ready, and we take full responsibility as management, because audits are usually done within a certain set time frame, beyond which, even if you avail that evidence, the auditors have got their own timings, and the report had already been done. Hence, some of the evidence is being found in this pack. For that, we apologize to your committee, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? Honorable Nyemba.
Thank you, Chair. My controlling officer is on failure to pay withholding and value-added tax, which is due, which you have submitted, and you have indicated that you have got an outstanding amount of money which were owing ZRA of 7 billion. Controlling officer, how long has this debt been outstanding? And what are the discussions to have it closed? Then you put a tab on that. And can you justify to this committee why government should continue using you as an agent to collect taxes on its behalf when you are failing to comply with the provision of Circular 7 of number of 2023? Thank you, Chair.
CEO, could you proceed?
Chair, on this matter, may I call in Acting Director Finance just to come and elaborate on it, with your permission, Chair?
Director Finance.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. On the matter of how long these taxes have been outstanding, they've been outstanding for, previously we've engaged ZRA to make payment. I think in the first schedule, the first table, we saw those payments that were coming, the monies that were coming from government to pay taxes in the years 2021, 2022, 2023. So these engagements with government, Ministry of Finance, have been ongoing, and they've been funding us to pay the taxes. However, those finances haven't been sufficient to clear all outstanding IPCs. So it varies, Chair. Some data as far back as 2020, 2019, because we're not fully funded to completely clear the taxes that we have. So the dates vary, Chair. They go from as far back as 2019. On the issue of why we should still be tax collectors on behalf of government, we state that currently we are up to date from last quarter, quarter 4 2024. We've been ensuring that whatever payment that we're making to contractors, we deduct the taxes that are due and submit to ZRA. So on that basis, Chair, we wish to state that currently we are compliant and following all the processes and procedures, and on that basis we can be considered to still continue performing that function. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Director of Finance. And you've thrown your PS under the bus. Yeah, PS, you do not give people the full amount of money to cover salaries and taxes. You only give them salaries. And could you explain to this committee why you should be trusted with resources from Treasury so that you can sufficiently finance Nrfa?
Chair, indeed, as earlier alluded to, the Treasury is faced with a huge backlog of arrears in terms of the required taxes to be remitted to ZRA. I think it was highlighted about 7 billion. I would indicate that the Treasury is committed going forward to ensure that this obligation is actually dismantled over time. As you are aware, Chair, that it's quite a huge bill, and it's a legacy bill, as we have indicated. And as a result, discussions between National Road Fund Agency and the Office of the Secretary to the Treasury has borne fruit in terms of ensuring that allocations begin to be provided in the budget, is to ensure that significant amounts are allocated and funded. And I would actually indicate that we'll work closely, as a controlling officer, work closely with my colleague in Budget Office to make sure that when the profiles are done for this line to National Road Fund Agency, they do. I know there are a lot of competing needs, as we are all aware, notwithstanding even some of the emergencies that have occurred in the last few months, which necessitated the supplementation of the budget towards responding to the disaster. But notwithstanding, we engage with Budget Office to make sure that as they profile, we also provide releases towards this outstanding bill with regards to remittances to ZRA. I submit.
Thank you, PS. Follow-up questions? Honorable Mapani.
Chair, not necessarily a question per se, but just an observation, Chair. Chair, I think from the submission that has been made by the PS, there are quite 3 issues that I would want her actually to go through when she's free. One among others, chairs, is the issue of attitude. We need to up our attitude, Chair, so that we get where we want to get. And then there should be the issue of responsiveness, Chair, and finally ownership. Chair, once these 3 are combined, believe me, not few of these issues that have been talked about today would have not been here. So, Chair, I submit.
Thank you. Please take note. Any follow-up questions, Linda?
Thank you, Chair. Maybe this one might be out of maybe our discussion, but when they appeared maybe 2 years ago, I had made an appeal to work on the other offices like Samfia and Mansa, where we come out even if it is raining, but we are promised to say they work on those your offices which are not complete, because we come out of the vehicle, then we go and pay, and then come back, even if it is raining. But we were promised that they will work on them, I think when you appeared maybe 2 years ago. Thank you, Chair.
You put that in the basket, and Chair will declare interest, because he goes to his constituency every so often and gets soaked upon. So exercise extreme caution as you respond to that one. Honorable Kampiong.
Chair, maybe just the final one. The issue of this circular number 7 of 2023, where ministries and government departments and statutory bodies are appointed to act as third-party collection agents on behalf of the Zambia Revenue Authority.
Yes.
I just want to know, how do we get to allow this amount to accrue to such huge sums like 7 billion? Because it's a collection. You make a payment, you collect. Where is the delay in conveying the money? Because it's not like these are matter that ZRA calculates on assumption before you collect. At the point you're making a payment to contractors, forget about the other obligations, but that which you correct after making payments, at what point does it get stuck? You're an agent, you collect, you remit as collected from the contractors. At what point do we get it stuck to a level of becoming perpetual accrued arrears?
CEO, do you want to explain why you withhold? You're also withholding tax and not remitting to ZRA.
Not withholding tax, Chair.
No, it's a description of what the chair, the honourable member is talking about. A contractor is paid 10 million kwacha. Withholding tax is in there. The other tax, VAT, is in there. Okay, the withholding tax is in there. At what point do you feel to take that money to ZRA?
Yes, Chair, the observation is quite valid, and the way it has been stated is the way it's supposed to operate. And that's how it's operating currently, starting Q4 2024. Previously, Chair, what affected the process of remitting these taxes was the general debt of the road sector. Whenever there was money released to the road fund against the debt which was on the books of the road fund, would be compelled to pay everything just to satisfy the contractors in order to mitigate the debt, and wait for special funding as tabulated in the where the audit was querying excess funding for ZRA, which would come separately, so that we pay for the remittances of those withholding tax and the VAT which we had collected, which were deducted from the contractors. So the initial funding would be paid directly to the contractors. Then wait for a cycle of funding to clear the taxes. Now that cycle of funding was delaying. Hence in 2024, we took a decision that for every funding which we are funded, immediately we should be able to deduct within the allocated funds which we have received and have enough to remit to ZRA. So from now onwards, from 2024, fourth quarter 2024, that has been the practice and the trend. What we have in terms of the legacy debt to ZRA is something which was accumulated between 2015 to 2023 and part of 2024. I submit, Chair.
Honorable Kapyong.
Yeah, Chair, I think I'm getting lost. The IPC is being prepared, tabulated, scope of works done and everything. VAT indicated on the IPC as it comes for you to pay. And it's paid according to the tabulation as given. So you are saying you pay contractors including VAT, which was already deducted?
No, Chair. What I was explaining was that
Oh,
when you accumulate the net amount.
just wait. You don't engage me directly, the Vice Chair.
Please proceed.
Vice Chair, it was just a follow-up question on his response, because he was saying they pay contractors to certify them. The impression I got was that they don't follow as the IPCs as tabulated, which indicate all how the payments are structured, including the deduction for ZRA purposes. So when he said they pay to certify contractors, I wanted to understand what he meant, because if the money is deducted, at that point, we expect that they to be put aside for onward remittance to ZRA. But he's saying, instead of doing that, they wait for another funding, from which funding now they get money to pay ZRA. So that's where I just want it to be clear from the CEO, because it's a bit mixed up, and I got lost a bit. Through you, Chair.
Thank you. Controlling Officer, please.
I'll ask the board to say something and then the CEO will complement.
Chair, please proceed.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I think maybe to break it down, just to respond to Honorable Kampyongo's question. There was an agreement of some form where, due to pressure, like what I earlier alluded to, over-contracting, so there was so much overbearing pressure from contractors to be paid. So what the parent ministry, which is the Ministry of Finance Treasury, did with Nrfa is to go into an understanding to say, we will be funding you separately to pay your tax obligations, so that you can be able to fulfill some of the contractual payment to contractors. So like what the permanent secretary here earlier alluded to, it's that delay for that special funding to pay taxes. So I hope you understand where it is. I think it is not necessary that Nrfa withheld that money, sat on it, and appropriated it in any other ways. No. There was an agreement to be able to allow that process to materialize. I submit. Thank you.
Under which law is that action provided for, PS? You were having agreements. Which authority are you citing? And what precedents are you setting for SMEs who have to withhold tax to give to NAPSA, to ZRA? What are you saying? That they are at liberty to just raise enough to pay net salaries, and then they will engage the statutory bodies to pay them separately, and will not see penalties coming from NAPSA and ZRA? What precedents are you setting? And if you had an agreement, what law are you citing?
Chair, the agreement was between the Treasury, ZRA, and ourselves as agents.
Well, the Treasury or Nrfa are not above the law. We only have a sacred document called the Constitution, and there are separate acts that guide your operations as spending agencies. One of it is called the Public Finance Management Act. Yeah, and no one operates above it. The power of origination of laws lies in this house here. And beyond that, we need to know, we need to see compliance. Any further questions? We will conclude as such, but before I say so, Honorable Vice Chair, any?
This is a very difficult, situation. This, what are they called again?
National Road Fund
National Road,
Agency.
Fund.
Agency, Nrfa.
They are really in a very difficult situation, Chair. We haven't gotten anything out of them, and continuing asking them questions really would be like flogging a dead horse. I'm only glad that they have agreed that they are amiss in all of them actually, because there is nothing that they have brought to us as a committee to convince us why they have been carrying on as they have been. So I think they will continue appearing before us. 7 billion is not small money to liquidate. I don't know, unless they have a planned idea as to how they are going to liquidate this huge amount of money. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Vice Chair. Yes, Honorable Kampyongo.
Chair, for me, just 2 quick ones. One that controlling officer, we won't accept the position of you coming with internal audit, responsible for internal controls, who then don't perform the aspect of pre-audit and then leave it to other entity to do. So, as you have pledged, it will be important that you put those measures in place. And then the issue that the chairman was raising about these arrangements that you make, you are guided. When you are collecting agent, you are collecting agent. Collect and remit. So thinking that you correct and then you expect other funding arrangements is just what has complicated this position you are in. And so to avoid accruing such amounts sitting as outstanding obligations, make sure that you do the right thing. If you have to revisit that arrangement, please revisit that arrangement so that you can be on time and operate as appointed agents according to the circular. Thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, Honorable Musumali.
Chair, sorry, I know that you are about to conclude, but mine is not a question, but some matter concerning maybe housekeeping, particularly on the service delivery. You agree with me, Chair, that we are all users, all of us here in this room, I think we are the main users of the toll gates. My observation in some of these busy toll gates, Katuva and Shimawala, I mainly use the Shimawala one maybe on daily basis since I live in Kafiwe. You find that when you are coming in the morning, you are greeted with that raid X on maybe 1 or 2 tours, making a very long queue, a very long queue for motor vehicles. And when you are at the tail of that queue, you start wondering, what is happening in front? I think most of us will have experienced that, including even yourselves, causing panic to motorists who want to make it in time. And when you go there, you find that those they are not working. The very few have greeted you with that green arrow, allowing you to pass. I think you look into that. And when you are even in the same queue you're about to reach, you will find that it has been opened. So you start wondering, what was really happening? The people who have employed, they don't see this congestion. I think that one is in-house. You can sort out that one. Otherwise, there's nothing else, Chair. But I've just observed that even in the night, you will find that there's a queue of trucks. But for that only one is open. I think we can do better on that aspect. And even the public there, I think they have observed that if you had that box, what do they call it? I was going to put that concern. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, Honorable.
Just an observation we made, I took note during the introductions, is that quite a huge number of your management team is in an acting position. It's not easy to ignore that. I noticed it quickly. I think Honorable Nakoka also noticed it and whispered to me, have you noticed this? I just thought we raise it, that the management team, most of the people are in an acting position. Thank you, Chair.
It is actually a troubling observation, and Honorable Kakubo has pipped in my concluding remarks. So proceed to comment on that. There are so many acting.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, honorable members. Just to start with the observation by Honorable Msumari, I totally understand, and I always continue to alert my management at any point that such things are brought to my attention. I've experienced it myself before. So we will do some housekeeping around that. On the issue of acting, Chair, this is a matter which is work in progress. As you could have read from the reports before you, there were some separations in the course of the year, and that basically required us as a board to fill in those positions with acting persons, and this process in terms of substantive office holders is about to be concluded, Chair. And the next time, if at all, we will appear before you, which is most unlikely, which is most unlikely.
Well, the 14 billion is about to be
we're sure that we understand, Honorable Mazoka, what you have shared with us. It's something that we're working very hard. This board is working, that I can tell you. This board is working. So it's something that is active on our radar in as far as substantive office holders. Thank you.
Great. When are you putting a shelter for that Mevenge target?
Yes, that one, Chair, since you are conflicted, I will ask my CEO to come back to me. I know that there's some targets being done in Northern Province. So we will engage with RDA, they are the contractors, to see if we can quickly. I think there's some budget provision for that. We'll engage RDA. They're the ones who contract, Chair. So we ask them to speed up.
Any response without the Vivenge target might be career limiting.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah. The prognosis of this audit is grim. We see wanton disregard for accounting and financial process, due process. We see woeful failure. Let me not even call it willful failure. Willfully skipping of due process in order to defraud the state. A double payment cannot be justified by anything that I have heard in this meeting. A double payment is an indictment on the CEO and the CFO. Not even recovery is sufficient to console us as stakeholders, the citizens who have reposed these resources in trust under your care. What is this money doing before it is recovered? Is it making money in some treasury bonds? Is it opening up fresh businesses? Double payments is just nothing but just incompetence or fraud. So, if we have qualified human capital, Zika registered in your accounting departments, we cannot be here dealing with kindergarten audit queries as double payments. That's absolutely unacceptable. And you got to put your house in order. You got to put your house in order. PS, you need to come out very clean as Treasury on the spirit of the act that inform the birth of these organizations. The Nrfa Act was formed through an Act of Parliament of 2013, Act of Parliament number 13. And it was basically aimed to be a sustainable and robust source of financing for our road network. It's a body corporate. There's a board. And you've got to make it very clear if that board has the autonomy to manage Nrfa, or you create a board and still maintain your strings from ministry. This is extremely important because your management has already shown here that they can dive and dike. If they're not happy with the cabinet circular from yourselves, they can actually just throw it to the board, and they know very well, they are learned, that this is a body corporate, and they report to the board. And if the board approves, they are on firm ground to pay. I will, in the end, hold the board responsible for paying board allowances to people who are not members of the board. For the people who are receiving the resources, they have the cover. And if you want to respect company law, and you want to call this a body corporate, the board has the autonomy to make decisions that the management will obey. And if there are cabinet circulars that come, and they are directed at the CEO of these statutory bodies, that's the reason why I'm saying put your house in order and make it clear that board, while you have responsibility over this management, we have greater responsibility to just throw in some, a circular, and it can override you. Okay? And if they are clever, they see that this cabinet circular is actually in conflict with their conditions of service, they'll put a motion in a board meeting to domesticate the circular or to counter it. And if they get the approval of the board, Lord and behold, they are on firm ground to pay. So when we're playing around these terms, body corporate, incorporated through an act of parliament, and you set up a board, be very clear what autonomy they have. And when there's no board, the PS or the minister are not alternatives. There must always be a board, and there should be a board charter to guide the conduct of board members or directors. And the board must take responsibility, full responsibility on how the institution is executing its mandate. And when some of these things are made very clear, then you'll have no issues. You'll now having the Attorney General coming in to state that this fellow whose contract you've terminated prematurely, pay him in full. What other option does the management have? And if the board has entered into an agreement with the director on particular conditions of service, that's it. If the board has no authority to get into those contracts based on some provisions elsewhere, make it very clear at inception. Our understanding is that Nrfa is a body corporate, and it was formed through an act of parliament, and there's a board, and that's the reason why we are faulting the board here for payment of allowances to management who are not members of the board. And we take great exception. Great exception. Issues of income and what you get, budget and income. Look, it doesn't start with numbers. It begins with a plan. And I mean, Nrfa has a strategic plan, hopefully, and it has clear, time-sensitive, realistic goals and targets. And then they are costed at the end of the day. Targets or whatever deliverables are costed. That's what forms your budget. And if you have forged partnerships with key stakeholders who bring in resources, those are things you project. And if you've got debt, debt does not sit outside the budget. P.S. Debt does not sit outside the budget. You can't say we've got so much debt and we can only hope and pray that they will give us money. So that when the money comes, maybe PS, I should give you an opportunity. You've guided your board at Nrfa not to include debt in their budget, because that seems to be the reason why there is this gross disparity between income and budget. We see in your justification for this variation that there was some money that poured for a project, 2 projects actually. Where are those projects now? There is a project under the Improved Rural Connectivity Road project, Chisali to Nakonde and Luangwa to Nyimba. Money poured in. Did it come as a surprise? And that's what should justify the variation. Planning is a science. Planning is a science. And in any case, planning department must have a panoramic perception of the road sector in the country, the needs, where we are and where we want to be, and you must phase your investment in upgrading the roads in line with your mandate. And if you're going to budget for a particular amount of money in a particular year, your projections must be close in terms of what income you're expecting. And if you've got debt that has accrued, let it be budgeted. Where do you want to get the money from? It's from Treasury. We'd like to come and appropriate resources for you to pay debt. Failure to pay contractors is causing poverty, promoting poverty in the country. Contractors get resources from banks, from other lenders, And oftentimes these contractors are losing whatever they put as collateral because of failure to pay or delays to pay. And what you're doing is promoting poverty. SMEs, these small contractor firms that you're giving these contracts, are the engine of economic growth. And they are the ones that employ our people. They're the drivers of, they're significant contributors to our GDP. Now, if you are suffocating them with non-payments and you are content with accumulating a debt, and then the reason you are formed for is not being realized. I reiterate this committee's concern about this audit. It's grim. You want to say that there is an obvious indication of intention to defraud, and if you don't want to call it that, you want to call it incompetence. And if you want to call it incompetence, then you want to look at your human capital. The committee will not take kindly to those unconstitutional agreements you are making, and then they appear in the audit reports. If they are constitutional, they won't be in the audit reports. They'll just be an attachment, and they'll just say this is as per this provision in the Constitution. But because they are unconstitutional and they are illegal, that's why they are being picked as illegalities, resulting into debt. Internal audit, direct internal audit. You say you've got sound internal audit processes, sound. I'd like to differ. I'd like to say you have nothing in internal audit. Because even when you pass a document for payment in internal audit and time lapses, at the time money comes in, if the bond is expired, if there are other things that need updating, the payment still can't proceed. And that's internal audit. Well, you've come with the flamboyant words, risk and this and that does, and you do post audit, and like internal audit is to prevent wrong procedures, and it cannot be done post. So you don't have internal audits, a sound internal audit, and you must work on it, board chairman, with your CEO. When you're talking of separations of staff, board chair, again, first of all, I must state that we should not unjustifiably get rid of directors. I mean, let us not perceive professionals through political lenses. Professionals should be looked at based on their performance. And so, this is one of the reasons they're being protected through, court rulings. He did 1.5 years, you terminated it, he's not incompetent, he's meeting his KPIs, and he's not incompetent, or it's because he's looked at as a political appointee. And now, you don't have money to pay contractors. You're paying a fellow who has only worked for 1 year, 2 months, for 5 years, including allowances, and you are wasteful. You got a lot of money. So human capital management is fundamentally flawed. And as the principal shareholder, PS, we need to see that the resources that you have placed in Nrfa as a principal shareholder create value for our people, and we see profit, and we see value through roads. A lot of members of parliament here are rural MPs. they don't see the benefit of having Nrfa, because any attempt at beginning any major project is aborted for reasons that we're seeing here. Even your priority setting seems to be urban-centric. The reason one time in my previous life as Minister of Health, refused to have a planning meeting at Intercontinental Hotel and took it to Chilubi Island and Kilwa Island, Lunga, Sioma, Kazungula, was because our planners seem to be born and bred in town, and they don't know that the national cake is meant for everyone. And when you're doing your plans, you must see how the country is seated in a particular sector, and you must see how you invest equitably. And that's the reason why we now have nursing schools in remote parts of this country and some hospitals in remote parts of this country. Your planners cannot be urban-centric. There are rural projects in Zambezi East, Zambezi West, in Sioma, in Kapiri, in Chifunabuli, in Pemba. In Shiwangandu, that come in every year in and out, and government assurances that are never met. Our trust in Nrfa is eroding, and with this grim audit report, we are on firm ground to state that the Ministry of Finance must up its game and work closely with the board that they've put in place to ensure that the Nrfa is back on track with a clear strategic plan on what they should do, on what they want to do, with clear deliverables, time sensitive, very stringently designed board charter, optimal human capital management. We must see robust and resilient ways of raising, innovative too, ways of raising resources to finance the road sector. And we shouldn't see evidence of guesswork by seeing these huge disparities between income and budget. We expect to see those efficiencies. Evidence of fraud must be frowned upon. And as Honorable Mapani said, we are surprised that you are just exchanging letters with people who decided to pay the same contractor 2 times. For heaven's sake, there was collusion. How many times? Who should forget that you paid AVIC twice? And I'm just using it as an example. How many AVICs are there? These are huge amounts. And pardon me for using a name of a contractor, it's just the name that has come to my mind. You can't pay 10 billion kwacha twice and you say you've forgotten. No. And we're not going to drop this audit query. This is fraud. This is theft. This is willfully skipping due process in order to defraud. This must be punished. And I am surprised that CFO and CEO would have jobs in the situation as this, shielding the people that are down there. Nrfa is a crime scene. And board chair must put this in order. I will close this meeting now, revoke the provision we used, revoke the immunity that we conferred upon you, and allow you to go and put Nrfa in order. Meeting is closed. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Honorable Members.
Thank you so much. You are still watching Parliament Television, the only station dedicated to bringing Parliament closer to you. Now, that was the National Road Fund Agency, which was appearing before the Committee on Parastatal Bodies, which is considering the report of the Auditor General on the accounts of the parastatal bodies and other statutory institutions for the financial year ended 31st December 2023. I've been a presenter, Joa Katam, and of course my two sign language interpreters, Jason Manda and Chola Kawama, and everyone in the controls was making sure that you are able to follow the committee's proceedings right here on your favorite channel, Parliament TV. Have a pleasant viewing. Good afternoon.
Zambia, a jewel in the center of Africa. Offering a wide diversity of fauna and flora. Zambia's national parks are waiting to welcome you. The Luangwa River is the lifeblood of the South Luangwa National Park. In the dry season, inland pools and lagoons dry up, and the river remains the only permanent source of drinking water in the valley. A wide variety of grazers are forced to share the riverbank, in an uneasy truce with the resident predators. For tourists, these extreme conditions offer one of the greatest concentrations of game in all of Africa. In addition to antelope, the park is well known for its huge herds of elephant and buffalo. South Luangwa National Park can also boast of the highest number of hippos per square kilometre in Africa. As the river recedes, these giants jostle for space in the deep water. And when disaster strikes, reptilian scavengers are more than ready to capitalize on the feeding opportunities. But crocodiles are not fussy eaters and will happily join the numerous water birds in cross-species fishing parties. Pelicans, storks and herons exploit the shallow water for an easy meal. If the action dries up at the pools, there will be plenty happening at the riverbank, where the vividly coloured carmine bee-eaters make their homes. In Luangwa, you are not confined to the range of the game vehicles. Walking safaris were pioneered in the park and offer an up-close and personal wilderness experience. When the rains arrive, the Luangwa Valley is transformed. Although largely inaccessible to visitors, it's a boon time for the animals that can leave the crowded river for private inland sanctuaries. But when the seasons turn, they will once again be drawn back to the Luangwa River. fittingly dubbed one of the greatest wildlife sanctuaries in the world.
Nrfa, Member of Parliament for Mwabezi. I'm 68 years old. I'm married, got 7 children. Started school at Sejamba Primary School. From there I went to Bina. From Bina I went to Sesheke Secondary School. After Sesheke Secondary School I went to Copper Belt, which is called now Copper Belt University, to do engineering. From there, I was sponsored by the British Council to go to UK to continue with the studies up to master's degrees. There, when I finished, I worked for Ndola City Council for 12 years. I rose up to assistant city engineer. From Ndola, I went to Botswana. I worked for the Botswana government as an advisor there, and I rose up to the position of principal roads engineer. I was involved in training and the building of roads. I worked there for 8 years. From there I came back to Zambia to set up the road sector. When the road sector reform started, that is involved the road development agents, road transport and safety agents, National Council for Construction, National Road Fund Agents. National Road Fund Agents, I was the pioneer chief executive officer. I worked there for 8 years up to 2010. From there, I went to Uganda to work as an advisor to the government there in the road sector. From Uganda, I worked in Malawi to actualize the Decentralization Act. Thereafter, I did some consultants again in Eswatini. From there, I came back to continue to do my own construction work, which I've been doing up to now. Thereafter, I became an MP in 2021 for Mwabezi constituency. My Mwabezi constituency is a very vast area. It has got 9 wards, sparsely populated, and it requires to be split into 2 constituencies. Too big. It has got minerals, it has got tourism potential, but because there are no roads, so investors are reluctant to go there. It's not accessible. Surrounded by Mwandi, Sesheke, Senanga, Wampa, Tombola. Those are the areas surrounding Mulobezi. It's a vast area. The governmental agenda is to ensure that Mulobezi we have a good road network. We have Simungoma, Rwampa, Kasempa Road, which I want that road to be tarred. So once we open up, once we have a road, then we shall start seeing development. Also want to ensure that the feeder roads are also opened up. Also want to ensure that the train, the only means of transport, which is very reliable and cheap, Mulobezi train, I would like to see that Mulobezi tracks are upgraded or revamped. Want this Mulobezi train to move from Mulobezi to, it must continue all the way to Namibia. That's my vision. And also I'd like to see that we are working together to develop Mulobezi with my people. My last words of people Mulobezi that we should work together. The time for politicking is gone. We are now developing our country, developing our constituency. We need to work together. The money is there for CDF, the money is there under ECC. Now it's up to us to work together and ensure that that poverty which we had, it must come to an end. People must apply for that money. We have got grants, we have got loans, so that we nap the poverty in the bud. So that's my last word to Mulobezi, that we should work together and develop the country. Time for politicking is gone.
In a bid to take service delivery closer to the people, government continues to take development to all parts of the country through increased Constituency Development Fund, CDF. On the Constituency Development Fund program, we profile Solwezi East constituency in Mushindamo district of the Northwestern Province to appreciate the progress made in the implementation of Constituency Development Fund projects. Solwezi East constituency consists of 8 wards, namely Musaka, Mujimanzovu, Mulonga, Kalilele, Kilumba, Kangwena, Mapunga, and Kikola. This is Kichile Primary School in Mujimanzovu ward. The school has benefited under the Constituency Development Fund approved projects and has seen the construction of a 1x3 classroom block with works at 61% completion. The school has also received school desks procured under the Constituency Development Fund allocation. Solwezi East Member of Parliament, Mr. Alex Katakwe, explained how the construction of this school will greatly improve education standards in the area.
The value of this school is that it is going to bring education closer to our people here in Chief Mujimanzovu. As you know, the New Dawn government has given priority to education, and that is why you find that the largest component of the CDF is channeled towards education, because the president has mentioned it time and again that education is the best equalizer.
The entourage checked on the mother's shelter at Mapunga Rural Health Center. Although the mother's shelter is currently being used to accommodate staff, the lawmaker recognizes its importance.
The intention was to provide this facility as mother's shelter so that our mothers are taken care of during their time when they want to bring life into this world. Now, looking at the challenges that we have, we know, yes, CDF has been increased, but because of the so many things that need to be attended to, all of them being critical. Okay, issues of accommodation, issues of water, issues of electricity, and so on. So you find that this facility has been converted into house. So our health workers here have taken it upon themselves that they should be using this facility. To me, you find that both ends are still critical.
Despite the shelter being turned into a staff house, the staff at the health center explained the benefits of the mother's shelter.
We started this project, I think, 2 years ago. And from that time, we've moved from a place, and now you can see that it is almost being functional with what it was intended for. Though we had some challenges with when the government had employed staffs here, we had a little bit of challenge on where we are going to accommodate them, and we had to make an initiative so that we accommodate some staff here.
Now that they have built a mother shelter, it is helping. One,